who I've never met, and they're literally just me. There's even screenshots of mine and my bridesmaids' messages like in there. I was referred to as a toxic ex-boyfriend who she can't get rid of. The girl that I've never met before, in all capital letters, there's a message from her saying, I hate her. And just a group message where they're just on me. And mind you, this is my best friend just drunkenly showing this to me.
So all of this stemmed from you picking someone else to be your maid of honor instead of her? Girl, honestly, this is kind of why I think it's probably best to like not have a wedding party. Like you can have all bridesmaids, but to like,
but you're my first best friend, you're my second best friend.
It's so high school. Like it is so high school. And granted, she probably felt like a little rejected because she considers you to be her best friend and she would want you to be the maid of honor, but you don't feel the same way with her. Fair of her to feel kind of hurt. I've been in that scenario where I felt like, you know, my friend is like a better friend than how they felt about me. And it does hurt to know that you consider a friend a better friend than what they consider you to be. But it's her wedding and her choice. You're competing with someone that she's known a lot longer than you. And I feel like when it comes to maid of honor, usually it's like a sister or like a sister-in-law or like someone that you've known since like childhood. It isn't necessarily someone who is like your current best friend. It's someone that you've known a lot longer.
Does that make sense?
Fortunately, I had no backbone. I really didn't, because friend number one was even a guest at my wedding. And I had a lot of love for my bridesmaid. She'd been my best friend for several years. I genuinely just did not have a backbone, and I let her convince me that this was kind of all just like a drunken misunderstanding and she didn't mean it, and the messages were... Even saying it out loud, I'm kind of disappointed in myself. Ultimately, she did stand up there in my bridal party beside me on my wedding day. And like I said, that's on me, that's on nobody else. But we would never see or hang out with each other ever again after that. And I never got an explanation until about a year later. I got a random text from her, and I got to give it to her. It was a noble apology. It literally was like, I'm sorry, you did not deserve that. Excuse me. Sorry, you did not deserve that. I surrounded myself with mean girls, therefore I became a mean girl, and literally just owning it and just saying sorry. I did accept the apology. Like I said, I had a lot of love for this human, and we shared a lot of really happy memories together, so I accepted the apology, but we've never seen or spoken to each other since. I forgot to mention that one day after my wedding, I just woke up and my bridesmaid and friend number one had just unfollowed me on social media. So flash forward a couple months, they all have a falling out, and friend number one tries refollowing me on social media, and it was honestly just really triggering to me, just because, like I said, I never got an explanation, and I never understood why it was happening. So I just flat out messaged her and I said, hey, I don't want you to feel like you have the right to follow me. You guys bullied me for several months and for no apparent reason. And I gotta give it to her too, because she owned up to it, and she said, you're right. We were mean to you for no reason, and I'm sorry that I made you feel that way, and I'm sorry I was involved in that, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't respond. Friend number two, like I said, I've never met her, will most likely never meet her, so the fact that I saw her say those things about me, I just genuinely just not a nice person. I don't want to meet her. And that's
Fair.
the story. That's the tea. I didn't mean to open a can of worms. I just thought that this situation really fit the trend well yesterday. But it is what it is. Just a classic case of like high school mean girl bullying. But we're happy and we're thriving now.
Period. And you're so cute. Dang, you are just such a peach. I love your face. She is so cute. Anybody else just want to squish her? Anybody else just want to just... I wish I had her accent, but I don't. Misery loves company, doesn't it? And maybe there's a reason why, a good reason why you didn't choose this girl to be your maid of honor. Because I'm sorry, a best friend doesn't go behind your back and have like a hate group chat. That's a no. Clearly your friendship wasn't that strong to begin with. Sometimes it's the people we love who end up showing their true colors. Better to know than to never find out. Creator responds, you sound like a fortune cookie. I find it insane that she willingly told you,
Oh no, sorry, you can't like hang out with these girls because we actively talk about you and they would think it's weird.
and you know the friends are watching. Fine by me, I sleep very well at night, as you should, Bessie. You've done nothing wrong. They were just straight up jealous of you. I'm jealous of you too, just for the record. I'm very, very jealous of you. Admiring the woman on this sound who showed off her modest wedding dress. The last slide. Okay, do you guys know what this is referring to? Because it's pretty funny.
Please, sir. I want some.
There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of people making fun of it now. All right, so this is what it was. POV. You embraced your Christian modesty and your wedding was coming up. Okay. But you hated the immodest wedding dress trend. Okay. Fair, personal preference, all good. So you designed your own wedding dress and had it made for you. Okay, beautiful dress. Big fan. Love the car. You look beautiful, babes. And on your big day, you became a testament to the fact that modesty and beauty are compatible. True. Yes, definitely. I would say that that's definitely the case. For there is nothing uglier than an immodest bride who leaves nothing to the imagination. Okay, we're allowed to have personal preferences, all right, but let's not shame others for their personal preferences. You know what is uglier than an immodest bride who leaves nothing to the imagination? A bride that brings down other brides for their personal choices. No, just wait. You know TikTok just annihilated this person. Nowhere did I judge anyone or call anyone out. You are the ones doing the judging. Okay, you just called immodest brides who leave nothing to the imagination the ugliest things that ever existed. So I would say there is a little bit of judgment there. Can't wait for my backless wedding dress. You wear that backless wedding dress, bestie. I had a modest wedding dress, however, would never be judgmental about what other women choose to wear. And that's on period, babes. It's all your personal style. It's all your personal preference. I will personally be slaying my immodest dress, thank you, as you should, bestie, and as you will. I can't wait for my backless, strapless wedding dress with a slit on the side. Scandalous. Oh my. Modesty is more than looks. It's a mindset. It's humble and respectful. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Pretty girls don't hate. Pretty girls don't judge. Pretty girls are not haters. And we, as a society, just collectively agree that hating is the behavior of the uggos. Here's the thing, like, I am so here for everyone embracing more modesty. I love it. I really do. But the thing is, like most things in life, having an all or nothing mindset, is it really the most productive? Like, sis, you look gorgeous. Okay, if modesty is your thing, okay, go ahead and rock it, because girl, you look beautiful. The hair, the dress, okay,
she does.
Everything, the makeup, it's together, it's there. But why do you have to put other women down just because they want to show a neck or because they want to show their back? Like, what is immodest to you? Also, what trend? Am I slow, or like, what is the immodest wedding dress trend? I haven't heard of it. I generally need someone to point out to me what a wedding dress is, because I haven't seen one. Girlie, what is your definition of immodest? Also, I'm so here for how she says, for there is nothing uglier. She doesn't say because there's nothing uglier. She said for there is. Okay, she's trying to make it seem like this
like
is
it's
something
out of the Bible.
Straight out of the Bible. Okay, it's giving archaic. It's giving Miss Shakespeare. Okay, for there is nothing uglier. Girl, just enjoy your wedding day. Okay, you're too pretty to be doing this hating. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to state our preferences while also bringing down other people's preferences. You honestly had me. I love like modest clothing. I love that. And I'm not going to shame other people for having a different preference than me. Who cares? Body autonomy. That's what we got.
So something happened to me on my wedding day that I didn't think wouldn't happen. I didn't even consider it. Like, it wasn't a worry in my mind. But someone wore white to my wedding. And it wasn't like an off-white or a cream. It was full-on white. And this was someone that was like a friend of the family that I invited. I don't even know who they were. I don't even know you. And you're wearing white to my wedding?
Weird.
For this
Weird.
Dress. Anyways, I didn't notice until kind of like midnight-ish that the wedding ended at like 3. And apparently my family had been filling shot glasses with red wine and would walk past her and they would just like chuck the red wine at her dress, like at the bottom of her dress. And she didn't notice. And towards the end of the night, her entire dress, like the entire bottom tier, was red wine. Just like red wine splatters everywhere. So make sure your family knows to do that. Anyone wears white to your wedding, make sure there's red wine nearby.
That is diabolical. I can't believe she didn't notice. I feel like it is safe to say that, like, in this day and age, we all know you're not supposed to wear white to a wedding. Like, and if you do, this might happen. That'll be the last time you ever wear that dress, honey. The fact that you didn't notice until way later, but your family noticed right away and took matters into their own hands, that's pure love. I mean, I love how it was like a delayed reaction kind of thing. Like, it wasn't like a, oops, so sorry, I guess you have to change. It was like, no, you can wear that dress, but that's the last time you're ever gonna wear it. Because I bet she won't have any idea what happened. I will be having a super soaker filled with red wine and an out-of-pocket friend. I'll be that friend. Why didn't they just make her leave? That's the thing, right? It's like, you could have just made her leave. You could have. You could have spilled it on her dress and made a big scene about it. Like, what's better? Making a big scene and pouring like a glass of wine accidentally, or spilling it like even on the bum? That's awful. That's awful! So that she doesn't notice until later. She'll still be wearing that white dress. She'll just have the attention for all the wrong reasons. Especially if the stain is on the back side, if you know what I'm saying. Nice red stain on the back. Jeez.
Let's talk about the only time I've ever fired a bridal client. And she actually found me here on TikTok. So this bridal client reached out to me, inquired with me, signed up for my tasting, had the tasting, chose her flavors, accepted the quote, and I sent her the initial invoice for the deposit and she got it paid right away. 5 weeks before the wedding, I send the final email that I need to collect all of the remaining information so that the month before your wedding I can leave you alone. And at that time I also send the final invoice and let all of my couples know it's due 4 weeks before the wedding. So I do that, she emails back right away, gives me all the information I need, and then says, hey, my mother-in-law is going to pay the remaining balance due as like her wedding gift to us. The remaining balance due was, I want to say, somewhere between like $1,000 to $1,200. This was a really big wedding with a huge cake and one of my dessert table packages. This is very commonplace, so I was like, okay, not a problem. Please let me know if you need me to forward the invoice to your mother-in-law. She emails back again right away and is like, no, I can do it. Not a big deal. She'll get it paid. Cool, we're good to go. So from that email exchange, there's 1 week until the invoice is due. Well, a week after that week, so 2 weeks after that email exchange, I still have not received payment, and now it's 3 weeks until the wedding. I reach out and I email her and I'm like, hey, sorry to be bothering you, but the final invoice has not been paid yet and it's now a week past due. Like, we need to get it taken care of. She emails back again right away and is like, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna reach out to my mother-in-law right now and I'll get this taken care of. Another week passes. We're 2 weeks out from the wedding. She's ordered a large dessert table. I need to start ordering specialty ingredients and specialty packaging and like all kinds of specialty stuff still needs to be ordered.
With stuff like this, like vendors that need to create something have to pay for materials. It's kind of like when you pay an artist to do like a commission work of art. You got to pay them for the materials. Otherwise, they are literally paying out of pocket so that they can create something for you from scratch. Have that in mind if you want to hire a vendor or an artist or a cake artist or whatever. Don't have them be out of pocket. Get that paid ASAP.
But I'm not going to do that for such a giant amount of people if I have not received full payment. So I reach out again and I'm like, listen, there's 2 weeks until your wedding. I have to start ordering all of these specialty products to make this experience what it's supposed to be. And I have not received final payment. Like we really need to get this settled if you want to have what you plan to have dessert-wise at your wedding for me. She emails back again, so sweet, and she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm incredibly embarrassed. We're going to get this taken care of. I promise. Another week goes by. It's 1 week until the wedding. At this point, I email her and I'm like, listen, I am really sorry to be doing this to you, but if I do not receive payment by tomorrow, like, we're not going to be able to do this. This is like, we're cutting it way too close. I'm so sorry. At this point, I don't hear back from her, but I hear from the mother-in-law. She is absolutely scathing this email she sends me. She tells me that she's looked over the quote and she hasn't known how to approach me, but I am ripping them off and she is absolutely not going to pay the amount that's due. How dare I even be charging them that much? The best she can do is to pay $500. And again, the remaining balance is like $1,200. At this point, I don't know what to do because I've been talking to the bride, who is the one that ordered all of this, but she said her mother-in-law is going to pay. Now the mother-in-law is saying she's not going to pay because I'm ripping her future daughter-in-law.
Then don't get
I reach
it
out
then.
to the bride and I'm like, I'm in between a rock and a hard place. Like, what do I do? And she basically tells me that her and her soon-to-be husband do not have the money to cover everything that they've ordered, and they're depending on the mother-in-law to pay for it. And I'm like, okay.
Okay, that's not your problem, bestie. That's literally not your problem. If you can't afford it, you don't get it. You don't get to go to like a store and be like,
This is outrageous. I'm gonna buy this, but I'm only gonna give you this much.
why do people feel like it's okay to do that for like artists? Granted, there are a lot of people that price gouge when it comes to weddings. Like, you're supposed to kind of like keep the wedding thing a little bit under wraps if you can with certain vendors, because it's like automatically the price just doubles. for certain things. But when it comes to like dessert, I feel like for a wedding of that size, that's pretty standard.
So to begin with, my contract that this bridal client signed states that it's a non-refundable retainer, which is used for like goods and materials that are non-perishable, as well as to compensate me for my time with the consultation and the tasting and all of that. She did sign that contract, but here's what I did. The mother-in-law was really mad. She wanted to offer me partial payment for the dessert table and the cake I believe it was about 400 people. I obviously was not going to take that. So I ended up telling my bridal client, at this point in time, I have not received any money from your mother-in-law. The only person who has paid me is you. I have only emailed back and forth with you. I don't feel comfortable talking to your mother-in-law with the way that she's speaking to me, so I'm going to speak to just you from now on. If she had paid, then I may have also spoken to her, but she hadn't. The mother-in-law demands a three-way call between me and her future daughter-in-law and herself. I didn't take it, but the bride had given her mother-in-law my phone number, and she hounded me for a very long time. The bridal client essentially told me my husband and I were counting on my mother-in-law to cover this for us because they have a lot of money and we just didn't save for it. We have overextended ourselves trying to pay for this wedding, and we literally do not have the money because we did not save for it. So I basically, I can't pay for this without her help. I had gone back and forth with the two of them and just dealt with this whole situation for so long, and I needed to conclude it because at this point I knew that I wasn't going to get paid for all of these services. So I ended up giving this bride two options, and the first option was I could offer her a cutting cake that I would deliver to her wedding that would equal the value of the deposit, which by the way is completely outside of my contract, but I just felt so bad for the situation that she was in.
Right.
My contract states that I would retain the deposit and she would not get anything from me because she didn't complete her remaining portion of the payment, but I literally could not stand to do that to her. I felt so bad for her given that it was so close to her wedding. The second option that I offered her was I could give her all of the non-perishable goods that I had purchased for her dessert table, and she could attempt to do her dessert table for herself. For whatever reason, she consulted with her mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law decided that she would want me to give them the non-perishable dessert table goods, and she was going to do the dessert table for her daughter-in-law. I am sure that you can all imagine how that went terribly, and now her daughter-in-law and her son did not have any cake at all because she was supposed to pick up a cake from Sam's Club for them to cut, and she didn't even do that. By the way, the bride contacted me after the wedding and told me all of this, and I did ask her permission to share the story, and she said I could, but she asked me to not share the pictures of their dessert table, even though she did send me those after the wedding. It was a really unfortunate situation all around. I learned a lot from it, and yeah, very unfortunate. You may be asking yourself why the husband was not dealing with his mom.
Period.
Because she was being kind of a monster. I also asked myself that, and I do not know the answer. I did end up offering them a free first anniversary cake out of the kindness of my heart because I felt so bad for them. As you may have guessed, they're no longer married.
Oh, that's a plot twist.
Oh, there's a big surprise. That's an incredible. I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise.
You know, there's a part of me that is sad, but also not surprised. Because if I had that person for a mother-in-law... Isn't it funny that it's always the people that don't think that you're worth much and say that you're worth less than you are, who couldn't do your job if their life depended on it? That is just so funny. That is just so funny. You don't think that artists are worth the money? You don't think that they've built up the skills, honed their craft, bought all of the equipment? Well, you do it then. Let's see how it turns out. No longer married? Wow, that got me mama's boy. Honestly, I can't believe that, you say that this mother-in-law is well off and she's not willing to help you guys out on your wedding day, and your husband-to-be isn't willing to, come to your defense here? 400 people and she complained about $1,200. You gave her a deal. Yeah, I mean, well, it's probably more than that because they had to pay a deposit, but yeah, that's kind of how much cake and desserts cost. She sabotaged her daughter-in-law on purpose. Oh, that's the ticket. Why wait until the very, very last second to make your complaints known? This mother-in-law had weeks and weeks and weeks to make this decision, to contact this lovely, lovely cake lady, baker. She had weeks to resolve this, and she didn't. All right, besties. How are those pearls doing? Did you clutch them a little hard? I clutched mine so hard they fell off. Subscribe!
Only because boyfriend needs to sleep. No, but I only five babies.
Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen demands I have a baby for her. My oldest sister is 40. She always wanted to be a mom, but some complications meant she was never able to be a biological mom. In her 20s, she met a widower with kids and married him, admitting her intention was to become a mom through them. Her stepkids were never okay with her like that, and for the last 16 years, she has struggled to come to terms with the fact that not one of them even considers her their mom or embraces her like she would like them to. This is something she always complains about when she's around our family, especially me and our sisters. 3 years ago, one of my sisters was expecting her third kid, and she was going through a lot and struggling with her pregnancy. She wasn't sure they could handle a third kid and worried about financials because her husband had a new job that paid less than his old one. The old one folded a few months before that, and they had already made adjustments to factor in the new household budget. My oldest sister harassed her for months about letting her adopt the baby, going as far as going to our brother-in-law about it and telling him she wanted the baby and he should talk our sister into it. It never happened, but it did harm her relationship with the rest of the family. I gave birth to my second kid in November and had a procedure to make sure I had no more kids. Both my pregnancies have been awful on my body, and I didn't want to risk putting myself through that again. My sister brought this up last week. She said I was selfish to sterilize myself before offering to be a surrogate for her, and that I could have given her my youngest to adopt at the very least. I told her I wanted my kids, so I would never give one up like that. She said her dreams of motherhood were important. I told her nobody owed her motherhood though, and the way she was carrying on was wrong and concerning, and she had brushed aside our concerns before, but she needed to get some help because she can't keep demanding others give her their kids. She flipped out and started screaming that as her family, we should want to help her reach her dream of motherhood, and we should be more understanding because she gets crap from her stepkids and doesn't get any of the joy the rest of us have. We've been sensitive for years. We encouraged her to speak to someone countless times, but she keeps going on like this and it's concerning. Her marriage has felt the strain of it all, but I know I might have been harsh saying we didn't owe her motherhood, which is why I'm here. Am I the jerk? I get that being a parent, especially a mother in this case, is important to some people, and to not fulfill that dream is something to genuinely grieve. However, after being raised by people who felt that they were owed kids, it caused a lot of generational issues for us. We weren't seen as people as much as toys to show off, and as with most toys, we continued to lose value over time when we were no longer new. Honestly, the way she's acting is making me grateful she can't have kids. I can only imagine the pressure, codependency, and general issues a kid would face with her attitude. My mom wasn't nearly this bad, but I still essentially was her parent, and guess who I no longer talk to? Wow. First off, your sister needs a lot of help. She is obsessed with having kids, and she's turning into someone most people wouldn't even want to be around. She needs therapy and quite possibly medication. Second, not the jerk. You actually put it very well. Nobody is owed motherhood, and your sister is wrong to expect others to hand it to her. Your words were a bit blunt, but I have the feeling you have tried to be nice about the whole thing for a long time, and the comment about you being a surrogate for her was the last straw. It's not up to you to make her a mom. Good luck to your family, particularly her husband. Am I the jerk for not telling my cousin my fiance works at the same office as her husband? I have a cousin, Kat, who got married to Henry early this year. We weren't close as kids, She was pretty spoiled and would always brag about how much designer stuff she has, be really mean to people under the guise of just trying to help, etc. Don't go out of our way to interact with one another, but I do see her at family events and whatnot, and we do make small talk. I'm engaged to Chris, who's a software engineer. He's co-head of his department at work with 2 other people. Not too long ago, Chris was telling me about how they had some new employees, and one of them sounded really familiar. He told me the name, and I realized it was Kat's husband. Also, he and Henry hadn't met face to face yet. Kat and Henry had a huge wedding. It was really nice, but all she did for months was brag about how amazing her wedding was. The wedding stuff's died down now, so recently she started going on about how wealthy her husband is and what a great lifestyle they have. One of my other aunts celebrated her 50th about a week ago. I went with Chris, and Kat was there with Henry. We were chatting, and Kat was saying how Henry has a fantastic new job that pays even more than his previous one. Henry chimed in and said that they were already planning to buy a new house. Kat asked what Chris does. I said he was an engineer like Henry, and he has a good job too. But I'll admit, I left out where he works on purpose. She smiled and nodded, then said it's fine. She understands that I'm embarrassed and wants to keep it quiet. So that was pretty much the end of our conversation then. When we were leaving, she pulled me aside and told me to let her and Henry know if we needed help with the wedding. Obviously, I knew what she meant, and it was just another dig, but I said bye and left. Literally 2 days later, I get a DM from Kat, and she's furious. Well, as much as one can be through text, that I didn't tell them that Chris was one of Henry's bosses. Henry was shocked to see him in the office, and Chris made a comment. Tell Kat, OP and me don't need help, but thanks for offering. Henry's really embarrassed, and so is Kat, and she said that we made them look bad on purpose, and if she knew, she'd never have made those comments. It was my duty to tell her and Henry. Chris and I had a really good laugh over this, but she sent a text out to our family group chat we have, saying how she was blindsided by me. A few others said what we did was petty and wrong. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I love the way you handled it. It was better than the way I would have handled it, which would have been to publicly and loudly ask her husband how he liked working for my husband. But I have a habit of making things worse. It's not my best trait. I wonder why Henry didn't recognize Chris at the family function. I'd notice if my boss was somewhere, even if there were like 200 or more attendees. Or is Henry so junior an engineer that he hasn't even met the heads of the department? OP. They hadn't met face to face yet. Chris is a co-head, and Henry's mainly been dealing with one of the other bosses so far. Not the jerk. Kat is embarrassed and also annoyed she can't brag and one-up you, so she's telling you off as a way to clamor back power on you. Stand your ground and don't apologize. You can say, I understand you're embarrassed, but I didn't do anything wrong. If you didn't talk down to people, this would never be an issue. Ignore all the whining and people she enlists to complain on her behalf. They are all wrong. Am I the jerk for taking a DNA test? My mother and I have a low-contact relationship for a host of reasons, so for me, this wasn't a thing to worry about, but maybe I'm wrong. When I was a kid, she refused to tell me who my biological father was, or to tell me why she wouldn't tell me. My Aunt P, her elder sister, told me when I was 18 that my father was a bad person. At the time, I accepted that as an answer since my mother has always, despite claiming to love me to my stepdad and his family, made it clear how much she didn't want me around. But my mother lied about things, not just major things, mundane things like who made a dish. Fast forward a couple of decades, and this topic came up again at a family function because my stepdad's sister Im has never liked my mom, and since Im was never told the story my mother's side of the family was told, she was under the impression that I was to be told who he was once I was an adult. She asked about it, and when I told her I didn't know, she confronted my mother, who gave me a name, Tom Smith, and the school he went to in the 70s. It wasn't exactly the kind of info that helps you find anyone, so last year I took one of those corporate DNA tests. I didn't expect much, but I wanted to know if I had any half-siblings. I found a whole family this year, definitely not named Smith, including my deceased father's siblings. His name and other info doesn't match anything my mother told me, but DNA doesn't lie. My mother is remembered by them as the other woman, who, when my father refused to leave his wife, my mother told him she wasn't going to have me. Shortly after that argument, he passed in an accident. I look just like him and his twin sister T, who has a picture of him with my mother as well as his journal, which I'm still reading, but it pretty much details what sounds like a swinger couple figuring out that what they were doing was fun, but maybe too risky. Now I know the real reason things were the way they are, and for right now, that's enough for me. I'm still processing, especially since my mother has presented herself as a hyper-conservative Catholic for most of my life. But my new aunt is angry because she worked at the same company with my mother about 15 years ago, and my mother never told her I existed. She called my parents' house. They still have a listed landline, and my mother's first name is very unique, and left a long, angry message on the voicemail that my stepdad heard. Apparently, there were a lot of lies told to him about my mother's life before they got together and during their marriage. Now she's angry with me for causing problems, and I am definitely not feeling guilty. However, my aunt says I should have just left it alone after all of this. My aunt says I should have just left it alone after all this time. So, am I the jerk for wanting to know my father's identity and inadvertently outing her past as the other woman? Not the jerk. If she had been open with you, you might never have gone looking. You had a right to know about your background. It's hard to even imagine being in such a situation. Who wouldn't want to know their own background? Not the jerk. From your post, it sounds like you are a full adult, so you have the right to know who your father is. Other people in your life made a choice to hide who he was from you, and that made you curious. Not the jerk. Your mother's relationship with your father's family is not something she gets to manage on your behalf now that you're a grown adult, and her relationship with your stepfather is not your responsibility to manage for her. Her lies and failure to think through the possible long-term consequences of anything here are why things are so messy now. And she knew darn well there was no neat way out of any of this, or she wouldn't have tried so hard to put off the inevitable drama. None of that is on you. Forget everything about this place? A malicious compliance over a decade in the making. Many years ago, I worked for a little company. CEO was a jerk of the first order. We needed image hosting for a large client account, and CEO was unwilling to pay for maybe $2,000 to $3,000 in annual image hosting fees at the time, even though the company made millions off of the deal. Me being an enterprising individual, I figured out a way to host the images on Flickr. I saved the login information in a physical notebook and kept informing them that this is a house of cards and we really need to switch to a professional service. Several months later, I was promoted and asked for a raise to go along with my promotion. CEO said no. All promotions and raises required CEO sign-off. I tried negotiating, but CEO said no and to leave if I didn't like it. So I left. CEO told me to forget everything related to the job here, and he'd sue me if I did anything with the client accounts afterwards, such as sabotage or steal clients. I told him I'm leaving all my knowledge behind in the notebook in my final email to him. My manager and BCC'd my personal email. In this email, a full inventory of what I left behind, invoices, contracts, etc., including this entry. Personal notebook, account notes and reference material, including image hosting logins for blank accounts, keep for reference. Recently, I received a professional networking site message from CEO telling me to help them with my old accounts or he'd sue me. Apparently, Flickr changed their terms of service and the images were deleted. In over 10 years, nobody updated any documentation or the image hosting. Nobody bothered checking the email account either. That was used to log into Flickr account. I told him that I cannot help. Per his request, I forgot everything I knew about his company, and anything I knew was in that notebook I left him over 10 years ago. Seriously though, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Technical details from that long ago, I just laugh. Am I the jerk for confronting my brother's friend about boundaries and embarrassing him in front of my family? I'm 18, female. My little brother and his friend, who are both 13, are really close. You never see one without the other. In fact, his friend practically lives with us now because he prefers being around our family. At first, we weren't opposed to having him around all the time. He's a good kid, but he gradually became more clingy and rude these past few months. Now he gets upset when the two aren't together 24/7, to the point where he'll get fidgety when my brother leaves him alone for more than a day. And when my brother spends time with people other than him, he'll shut down and go quiet until the other friends are gone. One time, he switched it up and went too far by bullying one of my brother's friends. He teased her relentlessly and stole her hat, refusing to give it back. Our mom had to intervene and the girl left early. He used to be really nice to my brother, always being supportive and putting him first, but now he resorts to making fun of him with sarcastic comments that are very humorless and cruel. My brother's spoken up about how his friend's change in behavior makes him uncomfortable and wishes he'd stop acting strange. Yesterday, I overheard the two of them talking, and everything that came out of his friend's mouth was a mean jab at my brother's expense. This was the last straw for me, so I pulled his friend aside and told him his obsession with my brother is unhealthy, and he needs to stop acting this way and start respecting my brother's boundaries, or he won't be allowed to step foot in our house again. This is where I feel like I might be the jerk. He clearly wasn't expecting to be told off like that. He looked around the room at everyone staring at him, obviously embarrassed, and his eyes began to water. He said sorry, then walked out the front door. I feel bad for making him cry, but I don't regret embarrassing him in front of my family. It seemed to get the point across effectively because today he hasn't said anything mean or negative towards my brother. My brother thanked me for intervening, but says I should have told him off in private instead of humiliating him like that. My parents also think I could have handled it better. So, am I the jerk here? You stood up for your brother when the need arose. Calling someone out on their behavior is far more effective when you do it immediately. While in some ways it's unfortunate that it happened with other people around, it sounds like the kid needed to learn his lesson, and it's more important that your brother saw you standing up for him. Getting the timing wrong doesn't make you a jerk. You did exactly what a big sister should do. Edit. As the big sister, you probably have a place of respect in the friend's eyes. Being told off by you would really sting. That also puts you in a position to positively reinforce good behavior. It's worth spending a bit of time with them both within those boundaries you've reminded the friend of. It only worked because other people were around. When he looked around that room and saw that nobody disagreed with what OP said, he had no choice but to listen. Not the jerk, because your brother did need someone to stick up for him, but you probably could have handled it better. Remember that this is a kid. There seem to be some red flags here. The friend prefers to stay with your family and seems very insecure about keeping your brother as his friend. That kind of behavior doesn't come out of nowhere. Do you know anything about his home life? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for how she treated her little brother's friend or not? Please let us know. No, I think she rocks. Sometimes bullies get what's coming to them. Am I the jerk for giving false info to my boss's spy he put in my work crew, which resulted in him getting fired? Hello all, I hope you're doing well. So I had been having issues with a coworker for well over a month, and my boss refused to do anything. I can't get into specifics because of the rules of this subreddit, but let's just say anywhere else he would have been fired the first day I said something. Well, I went above my boss to his boss to get it settled after texting my boss every single day for him to come talk to him or to do something. My boss's boss handled it that same night, and honestly, I didn't want him fired, I just wanted the issues to stop. Well, my boss took things personally and chewed me out for well over 30 minutes on me going above his head. Well, after the other guy was let go, my boss added someone else to work with us and said to me that he knows this guy is solid, so if there are any problems, then he knows I'm the one causing issues. Well, that was red flag number 1 with this guy. Red flag number 2 was when he said, I'm not into drama, but your coworker was a nice guy, and you had no right to go above boss's head to get him fired. The final red flag was when our boss's boss just showed up randomly to chat with me because the principal of the school I work at asked him to come talk to me because my work tripled and I wasn't able to keep up. Well, this new guy said his phone was shut off, but all of a sudden, as soon as he heard that the big boss was here, he had to leave to make a phone call. So now on to what false info I gave him. So I get to work about 20 to 30 minutes early every day, and I used to just clock in and work till the end of my 8-hour shift, and that ticked off my boss, so I stopped doing it. Well, after the new guy got back from his phone call, he wanted to know when we clocked in, so I lied and told him I clocked in 30 minutes early and that I'm out of here in an hour. Well, the new guy got another phone call all of a sudden, even though his phone was shut off, and he left. I know now that he was talking to our boss because our boss showed up exactly 1 hour later and said I need to talk to you. He proceeded to tell me that I knew not to clock in early and that I had been warned not to do that. I told him to look at my time card, and sure enough, I clocked in right on time. I thanked him for giving me an excuse to contact his boss again and went back to work for my final 15 minutes, and the new guy was let go for lying to our boss. Am I the jerk in this situation? Not the jerk. You didn't get him fired. You didn't lie about him. You lied about you. He exposed himself by reporting you and your management fired him. It seems like they're all completely out of line. It's probably time to look for another job. He was mostly hired to find a reason to get OP fired. Too bad that OP isn't stupid. Not the jerk. And the problem here is your immediate supervisor. Don't know what's going on with him, but the fact that he didn't address the situation with the previous man and then sent a spy in to try and catch you out so he could fire you, that's a huge red flag. OP, I know, and I'm looking for other employment. Tried to quit. So, dear readers, For those that don't know, I was a front desk agent at a short yard by Harriet. Key word being was. A few weeks ago, I finally decided I'd had enough. New GM was moving in, and my AGM, who started at the same time as me, was moving on. I was completely burned out on customer service. It's been a tough couple years to be in the hospitality industry. Long hours, getting called in on days off, people not knowing how to behave. I'm exhausted. I put in my notice the day before my weekend, ready to be done. The next day, I get a call pretty early in the morning. I answered, thinking it's one of the places I've applied for. I have literally over a dozen interviews set up for the next couple days, so I wasn't worried about finding something. But it's not any of them. It's the director of sales at my current place of work. She asks if I'm really leaving and then says they don't want to lose me. I'm the top associate when it comes to Bonvoy signups and new sales leads, plus I know the front desk inside and out. I told her I was burned out on front desk and I wasn't going to stay. She tells me that I don't need to stay at the front desk. They're hiring a sales coordinator. Better pay, 9 to 5 hours, I get my own desk. I don't have to wear the god-awful short yard uniform. I told her I'd think about it and let her know. When I next go into work, I'm talking it over with some of my coworkers. What do I find out? The head chef, who's worked basically every position in the hotel and knows it better than anyone, he kept things running during lockdown, has been offered the AGM position. Over the moon is an understatement for how I was feeling. The new GM, who I had been iffy about, calls me into his office and tells me that they don't want to lose talent. He really wants me to stay. So here we are, dear readers. I get to stay at a property I love with a team I love, but I'm officially done at the front desk on Monday. I still have stories to post, and I'm sure this new position will have plenty of interesting tales. On to the next adventure. My Karen mother moves in with me, chaos ensues. At the beginning of lockdowns here in Germany, my mother came to me saying I should let her live with me in my house because, wait for it, I am your mother. Well, I let her move into the granny apartment. It has a separate entrance and has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen/dining room, and living room. While she slept in the bedroom in the apartment, she used the main kitchen to cook her meals, but refused to cook shared meals, used the main living room to watch TV, basically acted as if she owned the house. Any of my complaints she likewise dismissed. I am your mother. It all came to a head when I was working on a computer in the living room. There was a lull while the system setup was doing its thing, so I went to the kitchen to brew tea and have a snack. During this time, my mother went into the living room to watch TV, but I had been listening to Vivaldi's Four Seasons, so she started pulling power plugs in an attempt to shut off the music. One of the first plugs she pulled was, of course, the computer I had been working on. When I came back to the kitchen, she rejected any fault for it. According to her, it was clearly my fault because she had to shut off the music to watch TV. So why would she feel free to shut off my music in my house? Not to mention that I had to start over the system setup. Well, because I am your mother. I countered, and my mother is a guest in my house, so until you behave like a guest, you better go to your apartment. She didn't like being treated like that one bit. Well, she went to her apartment, then left. I went to a hardware store and bought some new locks. Until then, the keys for the main door also worked for the apartment door and vice versa. The inside door connecting the apartment and the main house didn't have a lock at all. So yes, I locked her out of the main part of the house. And then the phone calls started. First, my brother, to whom I suggested he take her in. The house he lives in alone is even larger than mine. Then my older sister, who has 2 spare rooms in her and her husband's condo since her kids moved out long ago, and who didn't like the suggestion she should take our mother in either. My sister's daughter was somewhat surprised when I explained to her that the house belongs to me and not to her grandmother. Her brother only called to get my confirmation about that. My brother's son was actually on my side, but warned me about my mother planning something. So a few days later, while running errands, I got a call from the hardware store from which I bought the new locks. They told me that the police had called them to send someone to open the house. What had my mother done? She called the police for help because her son had locked her out of her house. When the officers at my house confronted me with that, I simply told them to try her key at the door on the side. Obviously, they hadn't done that before. Then they wanted proof that it was actually I who owned the house. Oddly enough, the copies of the deed I had at home were nowhere to be found, so I called my attorney and he sent one of his partners with new copies. He also brought eviction papers telling me to consider it. I simply asked for a pen. A few days later, my mother moved in with my brother. Brother, older sister, and her husband helped her with her stuff. Brother made a last effort to make me change my mind. My sister merely treated me with contempt. Brother-in-law told me quietly he vetoed our mother moving in with them before my sister even made the suggestion. But this still isn't the end of it. The police officers are pressing charges for falsely reporting a crime, me locking her out. Everyone and their brother has called me to take back the charges. I hadn't pressed them in the first place. It's out of my hands. To tell the police that it's all just a misunderstanding, or at least put in a good word for her. Why? Of course, because she is your mother. Impatient Karen loses her job. For those not in the know, a mystery shopper is a person assigned by the company to make random, unannounced inspections with regards to customer service and, in general, the well-being of the company employees and the store. Also, it is customary for these mystery shoppers to blend in with everyday customers and not bring attention to themselves in a way that can be misconstrued as just another obnoxious and rude customer, i.e., act like a jerk, get treated like a jerk. This lady didn't get that memo. One day around lunchtime, my boss was in the back having her lunch. I was out on the shop floor and serving customers, an unusually high amount, but nothing that I couldn't handle on my own since my coworker wasn't going to be in later. Then in walks Karen. As I was serving the queue of customers, I half-heartedly said, "Hi, welcome to..." I was hungry while still serving and ringing through items. Karen, and under her breath, "It's polite to make eye contact." Alarm bells. She hums and haws while I'm making my way cautiously and correctly through the remaining customers. All the while she's making daggers and eventually storms off in a huff, looking around. Like I can come away from paying customers just to help her. As the last two customers make their way to the till, she joins the queue with a whole 2 items with an audible, "Oh, for goodness sake." The customer I'm serving looks at me with a "what the heck" expression and I nod. Not even 1 minute in. This is ridiculous. Finalizing the payment before moving on to the next customer, the till decides to freeze and it takes a few minutes for it to reboot. I make my apologies and the customer I'm serving is fine with it, along with the customer behind. Louder, Karen. "Oh, for goodness sake, the service in this establishment," she was posh, "is absolutely ridiculous." I had enough. With my best, but upset, customer service voice and smile, I said, "Me, listen, as you can clearly see, I am dealing with other customers. I am the only staff member on the floor as my boss is at lunch. The till has decided to not play nice, and to be perfectly honest with you, I am well within my rights to refuse you service and ask you to leave as your attitude absolutely stinks." Karen, "What? You can't talk to me that way. Don't you know who I am?" Me, "I really don't care, to be honest. Now I am once again asking you to leave." She storms off in the foulest mood you've ever seen. The customer I am serving says, "Thank goodness you said something. I was ready to lose it on her." We both laugh, and I finish both services and thank them for their patience. They both worked in another store where we were based. My boss has finally finished her lunch at this point and has come through the front. Boss, "Oh, I meant to say there's going to be a mystery shopper in at some point. Don't know who, but please be on your best behavior." Oh my. I quickly tell her what happened and explained that I was busy, but not too busy that I needed her, and the conversations as it happened. And lo and behold, just as I'm finished telling her, in walks the regional manager for the company. Regional manager, "OP, back office, now." I'm done for. Now, knowing that the RM has a tendency to be a hothead in these situations, I was really nervous at this point. Thankfully, I've had a reasonably good working relationship with him up until this point, so it really could go anyway. Regional manager, unusually calm. "What happened?" I explained everything, from the moment she entered to the moment she stormed off, almost taking the door with her, and the fact that I had witnesses that worked in the immediate vicinity. The full shebang. Regional manager sighs and nods. I'm finally glad that someone else has the courage to stand up to my wife. What? The look on my face said it all, and he starts to laugh. Please accept my apologies, and I will let your boss know that there's not to be any repercussions for this. And I think it's time to let my wife know it's time to find more suitable employment. Me, speechless, and mutters, Thanks. He hands me a 20-pound gift card for the mall's cafe and said lunch was on him. The best coffee and chicken bacon club sandwich I ever had. Am I the jerk for no longer letting my mother-in-law watch my daughter after she kept throwing away the food I sent? I'm a widower and have a 6-year-old daughter who's a very picky eater and got worse after her mother's passing. She loved her mother's cooking and refused to eat anything that isn't made by her mother. I decided to learn to cook her favorite meals that my wife used to cook, and my daughter has been loving my version of her mother's cooking. I recently started working a new job, and my mother-in-law started watching my daughter 3 days a week. I have my sister helping, so I'm doing good. I prepare meals for my daughter to take with her to grandparents' house so my mother-in-law won't have to worry about what my daughter can and cannot eat.
How much money?
My mother-in-law complained about the meals I sent and said I needed to encourage my daughter to eat from a variety of dishes. I already explained how my daughter is when it comes to food and that I'm already learning new dishes every week, so it's not repetitive. So last week, I discovered that my daughter has been eating only snacks for days at her grandparents' house. She told me this, and I was confused. I asked about the meals I send with her, and she said that her grandma would take them from her hand once I leave, throw them in the trash can, then tell her to eat dishes she makes. My daughter refused and has been only eating snacks at that house. I was enraged. I confronted my mother-in-law, and she said that she didn't find that me sending meals with my daughter was the right thing to do, and wanted her granddaughter to eat her cooking and was upset that she refused. She said it's my fault her granddaughter doesn't want to eat certain foods and that I was spoiling her rotten with this behavior. I mentioned to her that the meals she threw away were my wife's recipes and that I struggle so hard to provide those meals, as well as taking time to learn to cook them. She stated I wasn't doing a good job parenting and needed to get a grip because she's feeling concerned about how spoiled my daughter is being because of me. Eventually, I told her that I won't let her watch my daughter from now on and decided to ask my sister for help. Father-in-law and sister-in-law kept on calling me cruel for not letting them see their granddaughter, and father-in-law said that I was overreacting and promised to convince his wife to let my daughter eat what she wants as long as she visits. But I refuse to discuss it because right now, I really don't take what they say at face value. Neighbor won't stay out of our yard and lets his dog use it as a bathroom. We purchased our home a couple of years ago. It's 45 years old, and we have a pretty big front yard that wraps around on both sides to a backyard with woods. The neighbors on either side of us have fully fenced-in, boxed-in yards with tall wooden gates. Our yard is open, and we're currently in the process of building a fence on the sides so that our dog has a space to run free. We have a 10-month-old German Shepherd Boxer mix puppy. She's sweet, picking up training, and does well outside when we take her on walks. And when she is outside, we put her in the backyard on a long, heavy-duty lead that's anchored so she can run around until this fence is complete. The neighborhood is full of dogs. Everyone seems courteous and picks up after their own, with the exception of our direct next-door neighbor. He lets his 2 dogs free roam. Everyone thinks it's so cute. They apparently
How much do you need for food?
Dad wants at least 200 because of we're gonna have to go out and everything. Because we have to go out to eat and stuff. And the only food that they provide at the hotel is breakfast. Why?
Ask it.
Never trust you.
I mean, either way, I will have enough. I want to make sure that you have food. Because I have 7 and then there's another 5, which adds up to whatever extra transfer you.
Gonna definitely end up like the greatest boyfriend ever. And knowing our family, he'll how we are, we'll end up wanting to owe you something.
Hmm.
That's how we are.
Mm.
And if you refuse money, we will give you a gift. That's how we work.
Why is it being a piece of shit now? Right, so I can send you down. What about the actual thing that I want to send you, which is 200? There you go. Should have sent to you. I see that you're happy. You're smiling over there. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Hey, it's not my fault that I'm rich.
Says the person that's not actually rich, just feels like you are to me.
Yeah.
It's just I'm not used to people having this kind of money, so it's my brain's like, you're rich.
I'm not used to having that kind of money. Like, if I wanted to and added money, let's say I added my total amount. Yeah, if I put in the entire 750, I will have 964 pound dollars. I mean, Yeah, that's from my norm. If I actually even did more. Yeah, 965.87 is how much I have in dollars from all the 750 that I normally get. Which is a lot of money.